Hey guys, maybe you don't know this, but there are a few grocery shopping hacks that you can do every week to make sure that you're getting enough plant-based protein. So I'm going to tell you 5 grocery shopping hacks that you should be doing to increase the plant-based protein in your diet. But first, hi, I'm Lindsay, and here at the Plant Plan, what we do is we eat well for our goals. May that be physique goals like losing fat or gaining muscle, or for general health and longevity. We're here to make sure that we're eating well for any of the goals that we have. And today, what we're going to do is to make sure that if one of your goals would be supported by increasing the plant-based protein in your diet, that you know how to do that. On this channel, there are a lot of grocery hauls, there are a lot of like one-off recipes, meal plans and meal ideas that you can incorporate to make sure that you're getting enough protein, that you're getting enough fruit and veg, that you are being as simple but creative as possible to make sure that you're getting everything that you need. And so here are just a couple of more tips that are going to help you do that. So number 1 is knowing your high protein sources. You've already heard me go on and on about this, how there's some okay sources of protein, and then there's some that are high protein sources that you should be making your meals around or planning your meals around, right? Now, specifically for plant-based eaters and vegan folks like me, what you want to be doing is knowing what your high protein sources are and starting from there. For example, you want to make sure that you're incorporating things like tofu or pretty much any soy products like tempeh, textured vegetable protein, sometimes called textured soy protein, things like soy curls, etc., etc. And then of course you can also do tofu that's based in other legumes. So there's a really great one on the market in Canada and USA. I'm not sure if it's anywhere else, but I think it's called Good Mountain Foods. But there are several brands that are doing this. They have a really good one that is based on fava beans. So it's a fava bean tofu. The same thing with tempeh. You can have chickpea tempeh, or obviously soy tempeh is one, but there are many different protein sources that you can be using. The thing that makes a protein source a high protein source is that if you're looking at the calorie breakdown, most of the energy is coming from the grams of protein that are in that source. So things like broccoli, for example, yeah, it has some protein, but I wouldn't consider that a protein source. I mean, yes, it is a source of some protein, but it's not something to base your meals around to think, oh, okay, I'm getting a lot of protein from this item, from broccoli. Like, you're getting some, but you're not getting enough, and you're not getting a lot, right? And it's not necessarily a high quality protein, okay? Okay. Other great sources of high protein for plant-based eaters or vegans would be things like seitan, right? Of course, you can buy this in the store, but it's so much cheaper to make it yourself, and it's quite easy as well. You'll find on YouTube there are plenty of recipes on how to make this. Essentially, what you need is vital wheat gluten, which you can get at any store because bakers use it, so it's not like some weird specialty item, and some water or broth. Really, that's it. And you can combine different things in there. You can use other protein powders, like I like to use pea protein or chickpea protein powders, or flour, whatever you call it. Mix that in as well. You can flavor it or style it any way you want. You can make patties, you can make nuggets, you can make deli meat. You can do whatever you want with that. And that's also a great source of protein that is very, very, very affordable and easy to make, and very high in protein and low in other macros. So that's a great choice as well. So I've listed off quite a few, but Certainly there's other ones. There's mycoproteins, which is a protein based, well, it's in the name. It's basically like a mycelium based protein, or mushrooms, fungus, whatever you want to call it. But that's also a great protein source, and it's a complete protein source as well. And number two, you want to combine secondary protein sources in your meals. What do I mean by that? A great thing to do would be to incorporate things like lentils, nuts, seeds, beans, other legumes, right? Different whole grains. There are plenty of whole grains that have a high protein content, or I should say higher than things like rice, right? So if you opt for a wild rice, you may get a couple of more grams of protein than you would for like a more refined grain. Surely you're familiar with quinoa, but if you're someone like me who isn't like too much of a fan of quinoa, like I'll eat it, but it's not a grain that I'm gravitating towards, you might want to look at things like amaranth, teff, other ones that I can't, spelt is another one. And then there's also vegetables that have a decent amount, or decent enough amount of proteins where I could call it a secondary protein source. For example, mushrooms, artichokes, asparagus, broccoli, like I mentioned before, Brussels sprouts. Again, they're not high protein sources, but they're a good secondary source of protein where you can incorporate them and know that you're getting a couple of extra grams here and there, right? Or maybe a little bit more than a couple of extra, depending on what you're using. So for example, lentils, I think per serving there's like 12 grams of protein. That's pretty decent, right? So if you're adding a cup of lentils to a serving of tofu or a serving of seitan, and you're putting that in like a bowl style meal, or maybe you're replacing a grain that you would use with lentils as the base, you could very, very easily get a good 30 or even 40 grams of protein, depending on how much of those things that you're using, for not too much of a calorie increase, again, depending on how you're formulating that meal. Another thing to add would be nutritional yeast, right? Nutritional yeast, for what it is, it has like a pretty decent amount of protein. I believe in a tablespoon you might have 8 grams of protein in that, and that's a great, wonderful boost, flavor boost and nutrient boost, right? Not only does it have a good amount of protein, but especially if it's fortified, it has a lot of other vitamins and minerals that are in there. So so that's always a great thing to add. In addition, you could add seeds like chia seeds, flax seeds. They have a lot, they're very nutrient dense. I won't get into it because we're talking about protein today, but they're very nutrient dense. They have a lot of great things in there. And in addition, they have a great amount of protein for what they are. Obviously, to have that as a protein source, you would have to have a lot of it, and that means also a lot of calories because of all the other, nutrients that are in there. So you don't want to base the meal off of that and say that that's your protein. I keep saying this, but some people need to hear it repeatedly. In any case, it's something to add to your meals for those extra grams of protein if you'd like. Oh, and another one I didn't mention is hemp. A lot of people really like hemp. Hemp is one where you can make, you can use that as a sauce base, so that's a really great one. So you can add that as well. Another thing is nuts. I did mention that before, but I just want to kind of like add at the end here that nuts, yes, they have some added protein, but you don't want to go overboard with them if you are having a physical related to weight loss or fat loss specifically, right? They're not bad. They're just very, very nutrient dense, very calorie dense. And so what happens is sometimes folks will, put a whole bunch of peanut butter on everything, and that's a great meal. That's healthy. There's a lot of good fats in there. There is protein, et cetera, but there also are a lot of calories coming from fat. Fat's not bad. Everyone relax. I'm just saying, if your goal is weight loss, you want to maybe err on the side of, okay, maybe I'll do, if I really want that flavor, maybe I'll use less than I normally might, or I might just kind of look at how much I'm using, or I might use something like a PB2 or a PB Fit, where they've extracted or extruded a lot of the fat and hence a lot of the calories from that, and you can still have that as a great flavor boost and protein boost in your meal. The third grocery hack that you can use to get more plant-based protein in your diet is utilizing your freezer. This is my freezer over here. As you can see, as an aside, I have my spice rack on it, so I'm not like running around my kitchen looking for different things. My setup is a little crazy, and that's why it looks very busy here. But yes, this is my freezer up here where I have a lot of things. Don't shy away from using your freezer or even buying frozen goods. A great hack as far as protein is concerned is bulk buying your proteins and then storing them in the freezer. Certainly if you're buying 10 blocks of tofu while they're on sale, right, which is a pro tip, you're not going to eat all of that in a week. Unless, hey, you might want to eat that much protein. I won't hold you. Go ahead and do that. But if you're not and you're being budget conscious and you're worried about getting other nutrients as well, and you're like anyone else, you can store them in the freezer for later use, and that's going to help you make sure that you're keeping on track because, okay, you already have that stored, and it's keeping it safe. It's not going to go bad in your freezer, so you're good to go on that. So that's a really good hack, I think. Another thing is if you are batch cooking, so for example, if you're making your own seitan, the freezer might be a great tool for you to use because you can make a huge amount very easily, especially if you're someone who doesn't really like to cook or doesn't really like to fiddle around in the kitchen. You can spend one time making a whole bunch of stuff and then store them in your freezer. Another thing you can do is not shy away from canned goods. You can get canned beans. Obviously, it's going to be less expensive to do dry beans, right? And dry legumes like lentils and all of that sort of stuff, obviously. However, you kind of have to do like a cost benefit sort of thing where yes, it's cheaper monetarily, but if you are not going to spend that time or you're going to buy a whole bunch of dried goods that stays in your pantry, is it really worth it when you can buy a couple of servings in a can and actually get to use that and eat that, right? So it depends on you and your personality. If you're someone who is prioritizing being budget conscious, especially nowadays, I totally get that, then sure, go ahead and buy the dried goods. But if you're someone who needs like quick food, available, and you want to eat healthy, don't shy away from canned foods or any pre-prepared food, right? If it makes sense for you and your lifestyle to go ahead and buy prepared, pre-marinated tofu, for example, do that. What's the harm in that? Except for your wallet, perhaps, but that's on you. If you're able to do that, go ahead, why not? Trader Joe's, a lot of folks like shopping at Trader Joe's if you're in the States. They have a great like pre-cooked lentils, and they also, I notice, have lentils in a can in the canned aisles. Every place has canned lentils and canned beans and all of that sort of stuff. Those are great. So anyway, using your freezer, using canned goods or any other pre-prepped good from the store that you can use and kind of jazz up in your meals, those are great hacks because, again, that's reducing the barriers between you and getting that protein in or getting that healthy food in. The fourth hack for increasing your plant-based protein in your diet is to meal plan. Hi, I'm the plant. Like, you already know how I feel about this. I think it's a wonderful, excellent tool to help you make sure that you're ticking off those boxes that you want to tick. Along with meal planning, you want to batch cook. This is going to reduce your time in the kitchen, and also, like I keep mentioning, all of these tips really are about reducing the friction here, reducing the pain points, reducing the barriers between you and eating what you want to be eating, right? And so so batch cooking allows you to batch everything all together, store it in the fridge or in the freezer, what have you, and have that easily accessible to you when you are ready. I put on my jams or YouTube, and here I go. It just becomes a mindless activity. I already know what I've planned as far as my menu for the week, or as far as ideas that I have, and it's just go. It's just autopilot. There may be a little bit of, you know, like a little bit of that your first week or two, but once you know the like 5-10 max meals that you like to make, this process becomes much easier, right? For example, for me, at least once a month I'm making seitan, and I'm not even really using a recipe, although I do have, it's kind of blocked right now, but I do have my go-to recipe that I just post on here. So if I forget what I'm doing, I can just look at it real quick, toss in whatever flavor boosters I need, and then go ahead and make it. While I'm doing that, I'm getting my entertainment in, I'm getting my music in, I'm prepping other components of meals. Maybe I'm making rice, maybe I'm cooking lentils, maybe I am destemming kale and kind of putting that in this container that I have, right? So batch cooking, again, allows you to cook your proteins in batch and have them at the ready, so that when you're sitting down to, or I guess not sitting, when you're getting ready to plate your food, you have it easily accessible, and it's not something that you're forgetting because you've prepped it already. So you have to use it up. There you go. And the fifth one, now this one, it's not so much of a hack, it's more of a mental thing. But like, I didn't want 4, I wanted 5. The fifth one is, don't be overly concerned with minutia. You want to push the big rocks first. Okay, it makes no sense to be overly concerned with like these tiny little things like, am I getting my magnesium? Yes you are. Okay, yes you are. The reason why I focus on protein and calories is because that is really, if you want to like start quantifying and like, you know, in the apps and stuff like that, those are the major levers you want to pull as far as your food intake and your overall dietary pattern. Because as a vegan or as a plant-based eater, as someone who is eating primarily plants or plant-based foods, there are so many things that you don't have to worry about. There are some things that you do have to worry about. And by worry, I mean consider and plan for and stuff like that. Just like every dietary pattern, everyone has the nutrients that they want to focus on or that they should focus on. Every diet has its drawbacks. Every diet has its pluses and minuses. Even the SAD diet or the standard American diet, there are benefits there because in our society, it's convenient, it's often very cheap, it's delicious, it's fun to eat, it's easy to eat out with your friends. I just made that too. Well, yeah, easy to eat out and easy to be with friends and eat that, right? So, I mean, are those health focused goals? Maybe not, but like, you know, like I said, with every single diet, there are pros and there are cons. Someone who talks a lot about this is Simon Hill, and he uses the phrase nutrients of focus. And I think I was reading his book like way back when it came out, and I've been a long time follower of his. And when I heard that concept, something clicked for me. He talks about this in a video that I recently watched on his channel, but it's an interview that he had with another channel. The video is called "Are Supplements a Waste or a Longevity Opportunity?" And it was Simon Hill on the Imperfects podcast, and his channel is called The Proof with Simon Hill. He mentions this again. He says that for depending on your diet, there are nutrients of focus that you should be concerned about. For vegans, for people who are eating a lot of plants consistently and a wide variety of plants, you're not really worried about much. If you are eating an exclusively plant-based diet, yes, you must be on B12, right? You want to have a good source of B12. That probably should be a supplement. Don't just sprinkle on a couple of things of fortified nutritional yeast and think you're getting what you need. Please, don't be that person. You want to supplement with B12. Another nutrient of concern is DHA and EPA, otherwise known as, your omegas or your healthy fats. You want to make sure that you're getting a good source of DHA and EPA. The easiest way to do that, I mentioned this on my chia video, which I'll try to put that up here in the cards, or up here, I don't know. It's up there somewhere. Just take a supplement, call it a day. They are not that expensive. There are plenty of algae-based ones on the market. In fact, that's where fish get it too. So if you're an omnivore, just cut the middleman if you want and get the algae-based one, right? Now, the reason why I'm saying that you don't want to be overly concerned with minutia and other, micronutrients and things like that is because, again, you're getting that on a plant-based diet, right? I mean, I am so tired of vegans making videos about fiber, and I understand that they are there. I think the intent there is to reach omnivores or reach people who are not yet on a plant-based diet, and that's fine. They really do need to be considering their fiber, right? We don't. Like, if you're eating enough plants in your day, you really should not be concerned with getting more and more and more and more fiber. It's not that serious. Like, I mean, it's serious, but it's not, for us, it's not that serious. We've got that covered is what I'm trying to say, right? Especially if you are eating a variety of plants in every meal, baby, you're fine. And certainly for folks who are just transitioning or are not accustomed to having 60 grams of fiber per day, if you are normally getting 15, 20, 25, slow your roll. Your intestines will thank me later, and I will leave it at that because we don't want to get too much into the TMI, okay? But you don't want to be backed up and sad. Okay, if you want to have a multivitamin that's geared towards vegans, actually, I have mine here. This is the brand that I use, and it's formulated specifically for plant-based people, and so you're not getting like a whole bunch of, folate and magnesium and all this other stuff that you certainly get plenty of. Well, vitamin C, like, we're fine with that, right? Vitamin A, we're good with those things, but maybe get one geared towards what your needs are. Whatever, just get your supplements together and make sure that that's in your diet. If you want to look at the types of foods that and do that, that's fine. But my point is that every diet has their nutrients that they should be focusing on. Plant-based eaters have significantly less of that, but don't get too bogged down in the minutia, because if you're consistently eating a wide variety of plants, those are things you shouldn't be concerned about. Not really. As long as you have, your B12 taken care of, as long as you have a good source of DHA, EPA, and or if you're getting like a good multivitamin for plant-based eaters, they're not that expensive. Go ahead and do that. And now the only things you have to be worried about are protein and eating calories for however much you need, right? And even then, even when I say that, I just mean making sure that, you're not overly hungry or you're not overeating, right? I mean, that's it, right? So that's why I harp on protein. That's why I'm giving you tips on how to incorporate more in your diet, because as vegans, we want to be getting more of that, because it's going to be helpful for us now. It's going to be helpful for us in the future in maintaining the muscle that we have so that we can age gracefully and do well in our later years, and also now, right? In any case, I hope these tips were helpful. I hope that it's stuff that's easy for you to incorporate in your lifestyle. And I think they are. I'll run through them again. I have the list here. Know your high protein sources. Combine secondary sources of proteins in your meals. Use your freezer, utilize your freezer, and make sure that you're able to store all of the different proteins that you have, especially if they're on sale or if you're bulk prepping. Boom, you could throw them right in your freezer. 4, meal plan and batch cook. And 5, don't be overly concerned with the minutia and all of the different nutrients and fiber and all of that sort of stuff. You're getting them, you're covered. Get a multivitamin. Make sure that you're hitting those extra 2 things, B12 and DHA and EPA, and you'll be all set. And now you have more brain space to worry about getting enough plants in your diet consistently and enough protein and good high protein sources. And that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned. If you like what you are seeing, drop a comment, hit the like button, and definitely hit the subscribe button. We're going to be talking more and more about how we can incorporate healthier foods and healthier recipes, healthier meals into our life to fuel our lifestyle. And then we'll talk about coaching. We'll talk about if I am a good fit for you to help you on your own journey. Myself, I've lost over 80 pounds and I've kept that off throughout this time. And so I want to help you. I want to help others get on a really good plan for themselves and incorporate all of these different healthy habits that we're talking about. Let me know if you have any extra protein hacks that you use to make sure that you're getting in a good source of protein every day. And stick around. I'm going to put maybe over here somewhere, I'm going to put a playlist that I think you might like, and probably something that YouTube wants you to see over here somewhere. All right, see you next week. Bye.